Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for continuing to follow along with my journey. And you see before you the blue crab holding up an interesting pen that I just received. It's a Kaigelu 336, and it does have that amazing Czech resin that is part of the pen. Also, a lot of other little bits. I mean, it's certainly a unique design, and I would say certainly a very Chinese design, or maybe if you would veer into some other things, an Italian design. A lot of metal on it. It's pretty heavy and uses a phenomenal acrylic. So we're going to just get a little bit of a closer look of this pen as it twirls around. We're going to look at this in detail. We're going to say goodbye to Mr. Frog for now. So when you pick up this pen, the first thing you notice is it's heavy. Not as heavy as the Kaigelu 316, but certainly would not call this a light pen. But I just think this resin is just incredibly interesting. I'm glad I got the blue one. The other thing that I'm looking forward to on this pen is that Kaigelu nib. It appears to be a similar medium to what I've seen on the 316s. It's ground very nicely. And I've enjoyed writing with these nibs, so I'm looking forward to inking this one up. And we see that nice kangaroo logo there. Unposted. It fits nicely in the hand, and I think the weight is just right. It feels comfortable. You know, the barrel has an interesting shape to it. The thicker part is right here, and it thins down at both ends. I'm not necessarily a fan of this metal piece here, but, you know, they did a good job in the design where the grooves here are matched with grooves here in the section. And they really, you feel them, but not a lot. There's a step up here, but it's very smooth. So you can hold this pretty much anywhere you want. And like I said, I like the balance. If we open up the barrel, this is actually a metal section, and we see a gold plated piece here with labeled with Kaigelu. And the other thing is this is a screw-in converter, similar to the one I have on my initial 316. And if we look down in there, we'll see the threads, and we'll also see the metal. So this is a metal that's covered with some type of plastic coating. I think it'll hold up well. I'm not concerned about how that longevity will be. We got to do some comparisons and then find a nice ink here. I think I pretty much know what I want to put in it, but you'll see later. Besides talking about the design, engineering, and build, it would be remiss of me not to talk about this cap band, which is not centered. You would think the G in Kaigelu would be right there where the clip points to, but it's not. And if you turn it around 180, you'll see 336 is not also centered like it would be. Big Boot would not be happy with that. Here's a comparison with the 336 with the 316. So they are pretty much two completely different pens, except they do share a nice medium nib that I really enjoy. Both of these are on the heavy side. This one is definitely much heavier, and there's been some discussion with some of my viewers about the use of this pen, and to me, I call it a desk signing pen. It's a pen you would keep on your desk, and obviously it's visually attractive, and it has a weight to it, so when you're signing papers or impressing a client or vice versa, that's what the pen is good for. If for an everyday carry, for journaling, maybe for short letter writing, definitely not long letter writing, the pen is not really geared towards that aspect because of the weight and the size. To me, after 2 pages of writing, I'm pretty much fatigued out. So this pen is, the 336 is definitely more of an everyday carry, and obviously with the pop-up cap, it kind of would lend itself to that instant note-taking. So I have 3 pens in this amazing check acrylic. Here's that Kaigelu 336, which is obviously the blue one. Here's a Moonman M600, not the M600S, but the M600, which was the first one model that came out, in the green check. And here's the Pen BBS 480 in the white check. And there is a 4th check, which is brown, which basically doesn't have the white checks in it, or if it does, it has very few of them. And so you can see this has brown in it and some black and some white and some beige. So there's a lot of combinations in there, but the brown one is a little bit darker. Here's a picture of the brown one. Here's all the M600 check colors that came out, and that pen was on the expensive side, over $50 US. It had a German Schmidt nib, which wasn't my favorite. I think the new Moonman number 6 nibs are much, much better. So this is the checks. Great acrylics. Need some more light. You can always use more light when you're doing video. So hopefully you can appreciate these and decide whether it's something you'd like to look at in your hand. One of the things that I really like about this pen is it's extremely well engineered and built. There's a lot of metal in this pen, exemplified by the weight. We'll give you those weights. Pop off the cap, and if we take a look inside, we'll see there is a nice liner in there. Let's bring in the LED light. It's not all the way to the top, but I've had this pen now for a number of days, and every time I uncap it, it writes first time every time. Everything fits together extremely well, so the dimensions and tolerances are excellent. It's a well-designed clip, fairly springy, a little bit on the soft side. The barrel is also very, very well made. As I mentioned, this section is made out of metal, and yes, I have inked it up. If we look inside the barrel, we'll notice that it's metal. So there's a metal insert inside there. So this wonderful blue check acrylic is supported by a solid piece of metal cylinder underneath of it. So all in all, extremely well made. More well made than probably it needs to be, but I admire what they did. So that brings us to an all-important question. As you heard, that very substantial click. Yes, uncapping and capping and posting is a very solid quality feel when you do it. But this pen aesthetically is just a little bit too much for me. I don't disagree with the fact that some people, maybe the designer of this pen, just said, wow, I really love it, and let's do a lot of neat things, and worked with manufacturing and engineering to come up with all the bits and pieces, because there's a lot of pieces that went to put to this pen together. And this pen, like some of the other Kaigelus, especially the 316, has that feeling that it will last forever. And that's very good in a pen, especially this is on the high end, yes, in the mid-20s US dollars for a Chinese pen, but it's nice to see that they put that attention into it. Aesthetically, I don't know, there's a lot of metal on this pen, which I don't think detracts from the look, but I don't think it adds to it either. But it certainly does add to that stability and that feel and that quality and that weight. So we'll add, what pen would you rather have, the 480 Hidden Path or the Kaigelu and the Hidden Path wins out? I just like the design of this better. It's simplistic. There's only a little bit of metal on it. It does weigh less, but it doesn't have an unsubstantial feel to it. It does feel substantial. It's a little bit bigger, and it has a more classic section, which I really enjoy, and the fact that it's made out of the same material as the cap and barrel is just something I've always enjoyed. Now, you may say, what about the M600? And to me, I wouldn't compare these two pens. Unlike the Pen BBS, which is a few dollars more, this is more than double the cost. So I would expect it to be a pen that I enjoy more, but considering the level of engineering and build and everything else, these pens are comparable when it comes to that. But the look is definitely different. The feel is definitely different. And this, like the Pen BBS, has a number 6 nib, which when we get into the writing, we'll discuss in a little bit more detail. So what ink to put in it? I chose this ink, which is Diamine Sapphire Blue. Here's the color card. It certainly does have a strong blue component to it, but I see a little bit else there, maybe a little purple. I don't see any sheen there. The chromatography gives us another little bit of an interesting look. Let's bring in some more light, let the camera adjust. It is still mostly blue, but I do see what I think is a little purple component there, and it does seem to have a little bit of water resistance at the bottom. But the real test is, how does it look coming out of a nib on paper? As someone said, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so that's really up to you to decide whether this is a pen that you would find attractive, one that you could use in a social environment and people would be positively impressed. And I think that pen does meet that requirement. It uncaps, I said, you need to put some effort into it. And it does fit in the hand fine, unposted. And it does post securely. A little bit of a snap there. Doesn't come off. The weight is okay. I would have expected it to be a little bit back weighted, but it wasn't. This section's a little on the small side, but it probably is in proportion to that number 5 nib. So overall, this is a pen that I might get 2 or 3 pages out of writing with it, and that would probably be my limit because of the size of the section. And I'm not a fan of the ribs. I do feel them. You don't feel that step up. It's very rounded, so you could hold it wherever you want. But I'd prefer a smooth section and one that was a few millimeters more in diameter. As you heard when the nib was next to the microphone, this is very smooth. It lays down a nice consistent line. It is definitely close to a medium. And I do like the nib. If that section was a little bit to more liking, this pen would be a very good writer in my opinion. But it comes a little short. So let's say we rate this. I'm going to give it an 8.4. That may seem a little bit low, but as I said before, this is a design that is certainly going to be polarizing. Love it or hate it type of design. I mean, that resin is definitely amazing, and I'm very glad to have seen it in blue and be able to share it with you. But let's look at the details. So from a design viewpoint, I'm going to give it 2 checks. I love the resin, but not necessarily all the metal bits and the way the whole thing looks. From an engineering viewpoint, I'm going to give it 3 checks. And the build is also 3 checks because it's excellent. It's done extremely well. From a writing, I'm going to give it 2 checks and a half. Can't give it 3, but it certainly is a very good writer. The look is going to get 2 checks, and the value is going to get 2 checks, and that's how we ended up with our 8.4. So you may ask, what's my reference point? Well, my reference point is this Kaigelu 316, which has a larger Kaigelu nib in medium. And I just like this pen better as a writer. And it's not a big difference. And maybe the Noodler's Mass 54th is slightly more lubricated. It certainly seems to flow a little bit better. Or maybe it's just that number 6 nib. It has a little bit of give to it where the number 5 nib in the 336 was very stiff. And none of these I would call soft in any way, but on the paper, I just like the way this nib writes and feels better. And obviously that section is almost perfect from my perspective on what I like. We've come to the end of this video. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed a glimpse at a pen that you may never have saw about or heard about. Or if you peruse eBay a lot, you may have seen this pen and wondered what it was all about. So hopefully I've answered your questions on that. And maybe this is the pen for you. Again, it has its audience, I'm certain. Just not so much for me. So may you have many great writing experiences. Explore this phenomenal world of pens that we're fortunate to be able to enjoy. So we're going to say bye for now. Until the next video. Yeah, I do like that blue color.